Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shireen.
And it is the first Friday of the month of November.
November.
There we go. Yep. Intro, as usual. One day, I'm going to get somebody being like, shut the fuck up with that.
Probably.
But it's our podcast.
But you know what? It's our podcast, and sometimes it's all I can contribute.
Yeah. So, you know what? You shut up. Go find something to make yourself more enjoyable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, in the world of just kind of like catching up with things before the end of the year, November has just become one of those months where we're like, we're going to do what we feel like doing this month, and we're not going to really like super duper theme things. We have done for the last few months. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I think for the rest of the year to a degree, we're just going to take it easy. Things are happening. We all know the holidays are around the corner, dear God. And, you know, the level of stress and everything that comes with, you've got baby for the first time for Christmas this year.
Yeah, I don't even know what this is going to look like.
Yeah, it's going to be wily. So, you know, so I think we kind of just wanted to, like, take the opportunity to talk about some stuff and touch on subjects and adaptations coming out. So if there's a bunch coming out before the end of the year and some that we've not even had the chance to see yet. Yes, I've heard how terrible Regretting You is. It's probably a piece of shit. Have I watched it? No. Am I going to? Probably.
Oh, definitely. What do you mean, probably? Definitely. I will shackle you down to watch it.
Yeah. So, anyway. But all of that being said, at the very least, to kick things off for the month, we obviously figured it was the best time for us to take a moment to talk about the latest adaptation that the day that this episode drops has just dropped on Netflix.
Yes.
Which is Guillermo del Toro's 2025 adaptation of Frankenstein.
It's amazing! Oh my God!
So I should preface by saying, okay, so myself, this is like a side note, but I may as well cross-promote at this point. So myself... myself and Arthur, our sometimes co-host on the pod, always co-editor and back-end dev extraordinaire.
I was going to say backbone of the team.
Of the entire Fully Booked team. Fullybooked.ca, our site where we post everything, would not look half as good as it does.
What do you mean half? It'd be like two
it'd be like an
dots on
it would be like an analog blog.
It would be
terrible.
Nothing.
No, I would have pivoted to
DOS system.
I would have pivoted to just socials. We wouldn't have a website.
Oh, 100%. Like, how does one run a website?
Exactly. Thanks to him, we have the opportunity to do that.
Yep.
So he and I earlier this year started our own little side quest podcast about horror, because I know I've talked about it on the podcast multiple times. If you listen to any episodes in the month of October, you know that I'm like a huge horror fan of everything, whether it be literature or film or anything, any kind of creative endeavor in that capacity. I love it. I always have. And the two of us have spent the last 12 years of our relationship really like developing an additional love for the genre. And so we decided that we would launch our own horror podcast as an extra little fun thing. It's called Gravetone. And you can find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts if you want to look for that, if you feel like it, or follow us on socials at Gravetone Pod. And now I'm going to stop with the shameless
But this
plug.
one's our favorite one here. Fully Booked is really the OG, and it's our favorite, and Arthur can go away.
It's our baby.
I was here first.
You are so mean today. Anyway, so because of that, he and I hop on the bandwagon quite frequently of going out and basically immediately watching new releases as they come out in theaters and then doing like review episodes and stuff. We've got a bunch of them. And earlier last month, we had the opportunity to catch Frankenstein at a film festival that was happening in the Montreal area, which is like our hood. Which was great because we got to kind of see it early. But then, of course, we knew it was getting this limited theatrical release. But if not, you know, we were like, oh God, when's Shireen going to be able to actually sit down and have an opportunity to watch it? So luckily that opportunity did just come about, and we were able to actually go see it in a theater near us.
It was so good!
Before it ends its run. So that's what we're talking about today. So, yeah. So obviously, this is a brand new adaptation. As I said, like co-production with Netflix. It's Guillermo del Toro's latest release, and it is based on the 1818 novel Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley. I probably don't need to say that. I feel like people know, but if you don't, there you go. This novel was, of course, famously written
by a woman,
or conceived, I should say, at a time in which Mary Shelley was traveling with friends of theirs, including like Lord Byron, as well as her husband, of course, Percy Bysshe Shelley, who's a famous poet. They were all traveling, and on a weekend sort of trip that they were on to a degree, or a week-long trip, they decided to have a little contest to see who could come up with the best scary story, essentially. And famously, that's it. Mary Shelley came up with the concept for Frankenstein at that time, and she won. Also, side note, this was also a trip in which their friend Dr. John Polidori, if I'm not mistaken, came up with the concept for his novel The Vampire, which would be published a few years later as well, and was published a number of decades before Carmilla and before Bram Stoker wrote Dracula.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Isn't that interesting?
Considered one of the earliest vampire novels ever written.
I wonder what happened on that trip. They came up with Frankenstein and vampires in the same trip.
It's insane. I don't know. But anyway, it sounds like
Universal Monsters
Seriously.
sponsored that trip.
Sounds like it was quite the rewarding trip that they went on. So yeah. Anyway, that's just like a little bit of brief background for fun. And this is, of course, the latest adaptation. The story of Frankenstein itself and Frankenstein's monster has well over like multiple hundreds of adaptations that you can find between modern versions or retellings of the novel proper, between film adaptations, television adaptations, stage adaptations. Those exist as well in multiple
graphic novels.
Oh, God.
Comic books.
Songs about the characters. Like, it just, the list goes on.
Yeah.
There could be a multitude of them. So this is the latest iteration of it. Not modernized. This one's more of a period piece, but it does feel a little bit like a modern period piece. Like everything looks, the stylization of the sets, the costumes, everything does feel like it's, it's meant to be period, but it's also very modernized for an audience.
Everything about this was an interpretation.
Yes.
It was an interpretation of the story, an interpretation of the times with the costumes. And, given like what Megan just said about how many adaptations there's been over the years, different, again, interpretations, spin-offs, it would be hard to do something new with this. Yeah. And yet Guillermo del Toro did.
Listen, I mean, he famously, he is a lover of all things to do with like monsters, classic monsters, and he has spoken about, these things at multiple different periods. Frankenstein is his favorite novel, is my understanding. It's his favorite story, and he has always been one. And if you look at earlier films of his, you can very easily see that he's always on the side of the creature. Yeah. They are always the ones who are... He always has said as like a child, he believed that they were misjudged. And he famously, like for instance, watched the original Creature from the Black Lagoon as a child, and watched that and felt so terrible for the creature and felt that it would have been so lovely for him to fall in love, for the woman in the film to fall in love with him, like that character to fall in love.
Sounds like The Shape of Water.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if you watch older films of his, Hellboy, like the Hellboys from back in like the early 2000s, like that very much follows that. There are multiple different like love stories in those films that kind of follow that general waving.
Wasn't Crimson Peak also?
Crimson Peak as well. Yeah. Crimson Peak also famously one that weirdly did not do very well when it was initially released, and I think people have come to really appreciate it later on because it leans very heavily into gothic tones, of course. Great film. God, I love that movie. Anyway.
It's a great, I felt like when we were watching Frankenstein, because, I've seen a lot of Guillermo del Toro's work, like everything that you've just listed. I've seen when he did the adaptation of, you do that one?
Which one are we
It was
talking
a TV
about?
show, The Strain.
Yes, that is him.
So that was also fantastic, but it feels like all of the work that he's done over the years has been leading to this point, to this movie.
I think he may feel that way about it as well.
You said that it's his favorite book, and like this director has famously created so many works of art based on monsters and their point of view. So it could be that, his interpretation of Frankenstein, his love of Frankenstein has now kind of bled into his perception of all of these classic retellings.
I believe so. Yeah, I can see that.
And then to lead up to this moment of creating this film. And, I am not a movie buff. Like, I do not have the best taste in movies. Everybody will know if you've been listening to the podcast.
Next week, we're going to talk about another one.
Yeah, well, this is it. You know, like, I do not have the best taste in movies. I tend to like the movies that everybody's like, wow, that got 22% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Correct.
And I was like, that changed my life. National treasure. Anyway, but this, like, I was like, this was a cinematic masterpiece, and I think I was actually right this time.
No, it's like, from beginning to end, it's a stunning film to watch, which is not.
It was amazing.
It's not surprising. Again, particularly if you've seen Crimson Peak.
Yeah.
You know what a Gothic film from Del Toro is going to look like.
And this was like kicking it up a notch.
It's so stunningly beautiful and gorgeous.
Costumes.
And the costumes, the set pieces, which, by the way, the major set pieces, the laboratory, as well as the ship, were built practically.
Oh, really?
Yes. Del Toro is very famously very against AI and using too much CG. Yeah. When not necessary in films, and you know, in this, I don't think we should get too heavy into spoilers. Not about the story. If you don't know what the story is at this point, I literally don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. You should go Sparks Notes it or read about it or something.
You can probably Google it and read like a 4-line synopsis of the story.
You know, but yeah, there are certain aspects in which CG is used, oftentimes with animals, which is very commonplace nowadays. Totally understandable. Safer for the animals, safer for the actors. I think that makes sense. However, with regards to the majority of other things, so obviously the makeup, design, and all of that stuff, and a lot of the major set pieces that we spend a lot of time in throughout the course of the film, they were built practically. Which, you know, shows. I feel like it feels authentic when you're in there. It feels like these people are walking around this space that really exists.
Yes. And it does look that way too.
Yes, definitely.
Like, and to be fair, what then happens is that you're kind of limited in like the movement between sets, because they put so much effort into building like this magnificent set. Like obviously they're going to spend the majority of the time there. And,
definitely.
You know, and so, you know, what's great about watching a movie like this is that it requires you to suspend your disbelief to a certain extent. It requires the actors to have chemistry and to be, you know, interacting in a certain way that's going to captivate the audience. The costumes need to captivate the audience. Like, everything in this movie worked together to make it so that, like, the entire time I was just glued to what was going on.
Very much.
And, like, we went out late last night to watch this, and the whole time I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fall asleep. Like, this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
But I was like,
I was
just glued to it. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, the acting was insane in this movie.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, so shall we touch on, like, the actors and the characters a little bit and, like, that portion of things?
Yeah.
So, the film. So Oscar Isaac portrays Victor Frankenstein. Jacob Elordi portrays the monster. Mia Goth portrays the character of Elizabeth, as well as actually Claire Frankenstein. So she does a double. This is not the first time. If you're a horror fan and you've seen X, Mia Goth really likes a double role in the same movie.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, she's really willing to do that. So she also portrays in flashbacks at the beginning of the film Claire Frankenstein, who's Victor's mother. Gosh, there are so many people. Christoph Waltz.
Oh, yes.
Plays Herr Harlander, who helps to fund the project that Victor is working on. I cannot remember the name of the actor who plays William, who is Victor's younger brother. I quite liked him as well. I thought he was very good. Gosh, there are so many different like character actors and things in the film. So Charles Dance from Game of Thrones plays Leopold Frankenstein, who plays the father.
Yeah. He played Tywin Lannister.
Sorry
guys.
Listen, it's
early. So I was surprised when I saw Charles Dance. I'm like, oh, okay. So we've got Tywin Lannister, and then there was also David Bradley.
Who portrayed the blind man.
Yeah, he was Mr. Frey. Yes. Walter Frey, was that his name?
And also, so of course, obviously David Bradley was probably in the film because he previously worked with Guillermo del Toro on The Strain. And obviously everybody knows him as Mr. Filch from the Harry Potter franchise as well, of course.
Yes, he did play Filch.
Very funnily, I will add as well. And also the ship's captain is portrayed. Captain Anderson is portrayed by Lars Mikkelsen, who's Mads Mikkelsen's brother. Actually,
right.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. That's it. He's a Danish actor.
Yeah, he was excellent.
He was excellent as well. He didn't have a very like super long role, but I really quite liked how grounded the character was.
It was really nice. So there was this in the, again, not without giving away too many spoilers. So in this movie, there was captain of a ship, and they were from some like Scandinavian country.
It almost sounded he was speaking some sort of Germanic language. Almost it sounded like.
I'm not sure where they were supposed to be from, but it was definitely somewhere like in Europe. Correct. Was my understanding. And all these men are out on their ship, and they're caught in the ice. They can't move, and all of a sudden they come across Victor Frankenstein, who is injured.
Which this is all in the novel as well. Victor is found by the ship's crew, and he tells the story of his creation and everything subsequently that followed to the ship's captain. And we do also, the novel also does vacillate, and you are given the perspective of the monster himself also. Which
they do in the movie, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
I looked at Megan when it was like, when
it was the monster's turn, she got all excited.
I was so excited. I'm like, yay!
So I think we've talked about this previously when we've talked about like some of the other like films and things that we've covered. Shireen is a huge Jacob Elordi fan. She loves him. Yes. And I feel like that's not surprising. The guy has like a fucking legion of fans at this point.
Oh yeah. He's a great actor.
But I feel like my appreciation for his performances, I did not have it until recently.
Oh really, eh?
So, and I mean, like, I will say, if you take a look at like career-wise, this guy went from the fucking kissing booth to doing this. So like, good for him.
Well, he did a Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, he did do a Robert. He's like in the middle of doing that.
He's in the middle
of
doing a Robert Pattinson. Yeah.
So, like obviously we saw the Kissing Booth movies, hot garbage, hated that character as well.
Check out our episodes on that.
Yeah. Moved on from that into Euphoria, which I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about.
He did a great job in Euphoria.
I suppose he did, but I think because the character was so incredibly hateful and quite scary, I just couldn't bring myself to like separate the man from, like, the artist from the portrayal of that character. Which again shows
that he did a great job.
But I couldn't really bring myself around to it, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about that show in general.
Yeah.
And a lot of the subject matter. Very much. And I'm a little like, that it's getting another season. Anyway. Yeah. But then I will say, for me, my big turning point was last year when we watched Priscilla.
Oh my God.
To do an episode of the podcast, which is the biopic that Priscilla Presley had written about her life, and Jacob Elordi plays Elvis in the film. And I didn't know how I was going to feel about this because I was like, okay, this is a weird choice. Like, this is a strange choice for this.
Because just to explain why we found it a weird choice is because Jacob Elordi is like this like heartthrob, like people love him. Like he's supposed to kind of be playing Elvis from the perspective of Priscilla.
Correct, yeah.
And it was, there were great moments and then not great moments of him 100%. Being Elvis. And so our thought was, if you're putting Jacob Elordi in this, are we going
to romanticize it too much?
Exactly. Yep. Are we going to see the not so great sides of this?
Exactly. But after having watched it and the way that the characters portrayed, the way that entire film, we loved it. We talked about it a lot if you want to listen to that episode, but like the way that everything with that film came together, that was one that I watched, finished my watch, and then was like, I don't give a fuck about the Austin Butler one. Can get fucked. It's a big flashy love letter to someone who wasn't a perfect human being.
Correct.
And I don't like that. I like a real portrayal of something. And that version of the character, that version of the story felt grounded in reality, and he played that character as somebody who was very flawed and very grounded in the reality that they were living in and the things that he did and the choices that he made and the
things he struggled with,
and particularly what those struggles and what all of the aspects of his life contributed for himself, but also to the detriment of his wife.
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a great film. I would really recommend it if you haven't watched it. It's so good. And I'm really sad that it was like sloughed off to the side because the family decided they didn't want a realistic portrayal of their family member.
Well, of course not. But anyway, all that to say, like, Jacob Elordi's his performance in Frankenstein, like, first of all, you're not even paying attention to the fact that it's Jacob Elordi.
No. Well, okay, so this is interesting. Not particularly not at the beginning, because I did find like in the early stages when you first see the monster, I was like, I knew it was him, and you can kind of tell, but I was like, he looks weird.
Yeah,
like
it
doesn't actually look like him,
No.
and it kind of shifts over time as like, you know, like the facial sort of features evolve a little bit in the character, because this is gonna blow your mind.
Okay.
It blew my mind when Arthur found this and told me. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, Jacob Elordi was not originally going to be playing this character.
Okay.
They had someone else who, unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, had to drop out a number of weeks before filming was meant to begin.
Okay.
And so the character design had been based on someone else's facial structure.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to take any guesses at all as to who they were going to get to portray this character before?
Okay, wait. Are they popular?
Quite, yeah.
Edward Norton.
No. That was a weird one. No. Interesting.
Who?
Andrew Garfield.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield to play Frankenstein.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield was originally cast. He dropped out due
He
to
would've been
scheduling
great.
conflicts.
But Jacob Elordi, like, he knocked it out of the park.
He nailed it. He really did. That's it. Yeah, no, so so Jacob Elordi stepped in, and that's it. They had, the makeup team had spent 9 months designing Andrew Garfield's
Oh my God.
makeup, so they only had a number of weeks to tweak it. So I think that's why you can kind of sort of tell, like, it's like as the film goes on, it's like it starts to mold to his face a little bit more, and it almost looks more like him, and you're like, oh, there he is. Okay.
Well, yeah, because but they did it in so well because, you know, he's been sewn together from all different body parts, and so it makes sense that you wouldn't recognize, like, he wouldn't have
definitely.
a normal face.
No,
you know?
I know.
But so they did a great job there, but like the makeup on him was
It looked really good.
nuts.
It
Like
looked
they
really
did
cool.
such a good job,
Yeah.
and like
it took 10 hours to do.
wow.
He would oftentimes show up at 10 p.m. at night, and he would just stay there overnight while they did the makeup, and then in the morning they would shoot.
Oh my God, he must have been exhausted.
Like, Guillermo del Toro has literally been like, is this guy like a fucking superhuman? Like, how is he doing this?
Yeah.
He genuinely was like, are you okay? But apparently he considered it basically like almost like a meditative sort of experience. He loved it. He says this is like the most immersive experience as a character he has ever had throughout his entire career so far.
Yeah.
And he seems to have nothing but positive experiences from the film.
Yeah, but you could tell that the makeup and the special, not the special effects, but yeah, the makeup and the props and stuff, they must have taken forever to do it. There was a level of detail involved, and especially like in the first half of the movie, I would say, like
since it's almost a full body.
Yeah, because they're like zooming in on him a lot, like to show.
Later in the film, when he's able to actually like get clothing
Yeah,
and stuff,
he's kind of covered up.
Then he said like that wasn't 10 hours. It took a lot less time because it was like face, neck, hands, and like maybe a couple of other little bits and bobs here and there, right? But yeah, earlier than that at the beginning for all of those early scenes, it must have been rough. That's a very long process.
But he played it in a way that I felt that he was the monster. Like
Correct.
not like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
no, I get you.
I felt that he really like he brought it to life, and I just felt for him so much, you know. And I was like, I had moments where I was gonna cry, you know, when he just
I think I cried the first time I watched it.
You know?
Yeah, I think I cried the first time I watched it.
You know, he just wants a friend.
And I know he studied some different aspects of like movement and like throat singing for the vocal quality that the character has, because he does sound quite different as well. I think they did a little bit in post too, because when he roars and stuff, they definitely do.
It's kind of hard to
Nobody could do that. That's not possible. It echoes.
Yeah.
Nobody can do that.
He'd be very good if he could do that.
So yeah, definitely incredible. And, you know, he's getting a lot of credit for it, and I think that that's totally deserved. But having especially now watched it twice, I don't want to overlook Oscar Isaac's
Oh my God. Yeah, we have to talk about Oscar Isaac.
I don't know if I've seen what I believe to be a truer representation of Victor Frankenstein.
It was so accurate. And like, again, like I was saying this to you yesterday, there's been some backlash, and there is every time there's an adaptation made of like the classics, where it's like, oh, it's not a scene for scene representation.
Not a shot for shot adaptation,
but it's an interpretation.
Correct.
That's why the classic novels, the classic stories are still being adapted and interpreted today, and they're still being studied because there's so much to look into, and there's so much like you could derive from understanding of different character tropes, types,
and people they have such a different experience.
Exactly.
With it. When you read something, I will have a different feeling than you will have
100%.
reading a novel like this. Yeah,
and it's so easy when you see an adaptation of Frankenstein to like vilify the monster and to say like, oh, poor Victor, like he was just kind of trying to do his science and it went wrong. But in this movie, they don't even give him an inch. Like, you are not...
But I still love how multifaceted he manages to be.
He's
not a one-note character.
No.
Give that man a fucking Oscar.
No, he's like... He comes in and, you know, you see the whole backstory of how he loved his mother. He lost his mother. He became obsessed with the thought of, like, bringing somebody back to life.
And because, you know, his father was quite abusive towards him. And so he becomes obsessed with the idea of usurping and undermining his father.
Yeah.
And the thing that you say that you can't do, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
And he does it, and then you just watch his, like, descent into madness.
Yep.
You know? With this monster, with his love for Elizabeth, and how these things combined turn him into the monster.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, you realize that the whole, you know, like, he was the monster the entire time. And I think that's pretty, like, well interpreted, you know, from this novel. It always has been. But Oscar Isaac does such a good job.
He has
when
a great
he turns
around,
you know, and like the monster finds him again, and he just is completely unfazed by the fact that he's there.
Everything that he's like seen and gone through at this point, he's just like, "Fuck yeah, of course you're here."
He's like, "Yeah, of course you're here," and like, "Oh, you're my greatest creation," and stuff.
Yeah, so of course you would be
so full of yourself.
Yeah, of course you would be a superhuman and be able to withstand all kinds of horrible things and all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting, you know, and apparently they were actually like, in spite of the you know, heavy enough and fairly serious subject matter that's covered, which, you know, again is normal with a story like this, they did keep it, especially him and Guillermo del Toro, they did keep it fairly lighthearted on set. Apparently they would just like joke to each other very morbidly in Spanish, like all of the entire time throughout filming and stuff. Because I don't know if people know, but Oscar Isaac's from Guatemala. So.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was born in Guatemala. So, so they would apparently just like spend their time doing that, and they're like, you know, it's just to keep it from getting too morbid, too heavy.
Well, yeah, because I mean the storyline and everything that happened in this novel and in this movie is pretty heavy, actually. You
exactly.
know?
Yeah, that's it.
I was weirded out by Mia Goth's performance, but you said it's because I've never seen her in a movie before.
I think so. I thought she was great.
She was great, but I was like, what is with the teeth?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the other thing, too, with that for what Guillermo del Toro wanted to do for Oscar Isaac for this portrayal of Victor Frankenstein, which you can see in certain aspects of the character, is that he wanted him to appear less like a traditional scientist type of character, like archetype, and more like a rock star. So he cited references like David Bowie, Mick Jagger, Prince in that performance.
Because he was supposed to be a rock star.
He's a rock star of the medical world, basically, right? So,
but like, if we want to talk about Mia Goth and her character for a second, because, you know,
I love this version of Elizabeth. I love that she gets a character that gets to have opinions about things. It's great.
Like, she's outspoken. She's a little weird.
Yeah.
And there's like kind of an insinuation that she fell in love with the monster.
I think she fell in love with the idea of someone so good,
so pure,
who's not been touched by any of like the horrible aspects of the world.
Because she expresses that earlier in the movie, her opinions on that matter. But it was the dichotomy between the way that Victor treats his creation
and the way that she does
and how he responds to her, and like it just got me thinking about, you know, like motherhood and like you know how Victor's mother was with him versus like how his father was, like it was obviously supposed to be
the
like
dichotomy of the way that Elizabeth acts with the monster versus the way that Victor himself does, where he becomes the man that he hated the most in the world.
Correct. And the way that he speaks to the monster is even worse than the way his dad treated him. Whereas she just approaches him with love and care and softness and patience and warmth.
Yeah.
And he responds to it so quickly, and he's so happy that
Yep.
somebody is approaching him that way.
Of course.
That I was just like, oh, like, it was such a good way of, like, showing the contrast, you know, and, like, how Victor, not only did he turn into his father, but he turned into something worse.
And he's even, like, you know, he even, there are moments where, like, I think when he has, like, these, like, come to Jesus moments where he realizes it, because so his brother, William, his younger brother, is, like, I find he's a really nice balance for a lot of the other characters. He's trying to be helpful. He's trying to do things. He's left by the wayside a lot, which is unfortunate, but he still maintains, like, a level of patience that I think is quite admirable. And, anyway, that character, I won't, like, talk about everything that happens, but the character says to Victor at one point, he says, I'm frightened of you.
I've always been frightened.
I fear you. I've always feared you.
Yeah.
And, like, basically the things that you can do. And I thought it was, like, a very subtle but a pretty, like, nuanced performance. So I quite liked that character.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think, well, he alludes to it in the movie as well, that his father was almost afraid of him too.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And that's part of the reason that he was so hard on him and horrible to him. Yeah, it was and that's it. This is something that comes up fairly frequently in Guillermo del Toro works in general, is that a lot of the stuff that he does, it's like, you know, part horror, part dark fantasy, and like
part romance,
like a macabre sort of mix of
tapestry
all of these things.
Of genres.
Exactly. And, like, you know, the majority of where that really comes through is in the visuals, obviously, throughout the course of the film, whether it's the set pieces, the costumes, the props, the makeup, like all of those things that sort of combine together, because he's a person who obviously he finds beauty in the grotesque.
Yeah.
And he also somehow manages to take the beauty that he sees in the grotesque and put it on screen for you, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And we're really lucky that a director like this exists.
I was going to say, like, we are lucky, and his work deserves to be celebrated.
It does. It very much does. And I kind of hope that he continues to be able to thrive.
Let's have Bride of Frankenstein next.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You would go nuts.
I would go nuts bonkers. Although we are getting, like, a really interesting interpretation of it early next year. Bride.
Oh?
Yeah, from Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Oh, that's right.
Have you seen the trailer for that?
No.
It looks interesting. Right. It is a very modern, but it's like if Frankenstein and the monster, I should say, and the bride were Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, okay, we gotta watch this.
I'm gonna show you the trailer after.
Yeah.
It looks fascinating. It looks really interesting, and I'm very curious to see how that one comes out.
That should be interesting.
I think so. But I think all of that goes to show, right, that we have been, continue to, and will continue to see adaptations of this novel and interpretations, as you said, to your point, not even really an adaptation, interpretations of this novel and this story, because it's so poignant.
Yes.
And so
open to interpretation.
So open to interpretation, and makes and has themes and things that it touches upon that are valid to this day.
Yeah.
You know, hundreds of years later, we're still talking about it. We're still interpreting it in different ways. We're still finding different nuances within the story that Mary Shelley crafted. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just fascinating to see what people will come up with about this character.
And, like, you know, shout out to the fact that way back when, this was a woman who wrote this story.
Yeah. Yeah. At a time where that wasn't as common, you know, in the early 1800s.
And if a story was written by a woman, oftentimes it was a love story or, you know,
very much, it's true.
Jane Austen.
Yeah,
you know.
so this took that and, you know, really flipped it on its head and opened the door, I think, to other women who wrote speculative fiction and things of the time as well.
I mean, even Jane Austen tried her hand at Gothic, didn't she?
Yeah, everybody has a little bit, right? All of them kind of did, because it was very of its time. So, so anyway, obviously, you know, we loved the film.
It was so good!
It's fine if you didn't, I don't care. I just, you know, like, I feel like at a certain point, I'm like, yeah, it's not a straight up adaptation, and I don't think it's ever going to be. I'm okay with that. If you're not, cool, whatever, that's fine. It's not for you. But I'm really appreciative that we're giving this story the love that I think it deserves.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next week we're talking about a not so great movie. So we're gonna come back to the crap that we touch on a pretty regular basis on the podcast, but we're gonna have other stuff before the end of the month that'll be kind of cool for us to touch on and talk about a little bit as well. There's another big release coming up before the end of this month, also that we're gonna
one.
Yeah, that we'll be touching on too. So you can follow everything that we have going on with that on our Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. You can search for Fully Booked CA and you will find us there. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.